Hey, welcome back to the Relentless Positivity Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Martin. We've got another great guest here today. We got Rachael Jackson. She's the co-founder and CEO of the REV App. She's also a West Point grad, Apache pilot. She's done a lot of awesome things. So I'm really glad to have you on. Rachael, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Joe. It's fun to be
Oh,
here.
absolutely. Yeah, we were just talking about how much we love being in the spotlight right before camera.
Yeah.
We're both fired up to be here. So listen, I just like to always hear about people's backgrounds. So kind of how'd you grow up? Where'd you grow up?
Well, I was born in Colorado, and then my parents divorced when I was 4, and we moved to Northern California. And then we moved to Virginia, Northern Virginia, when I was in about, I think it was the 6th, 7th grade, something like that. I haven't thought about that in a while, so I don't remember. But yeah, it just kind of moved all around my entire childhood. So not a whole lot of roots anywhere, I guess you could say. But my mom was a single mom most of my life, or a single mom of 4 kids. So we grew up kind of not wealthy or well off by any means. But yeah, I had a good childhood growing up.
That's cool. Yeah. So what kind of kid were you growing up? Were you a tomboy type of person? Were you all into sports, or a book type of person? What kind of kid were you?
I was a troublemaker is what I was.
Nice.
I was a troublemaker. Yeah, there's lots of good stories of me pushing the envelope. And I remember my mom just praying and telling me that she was praying that I would have a kid like me. So I thank her for my son, whom I love, but is definitely a lot like me. So
it happened, huh? It came true, huh?
Absolutely came true.
All right. So you mentioned you're a troublemaker. So kind of maybe this is how you led to being kicked out of the house at 17. So what kind of led up to that? And then what happened after you got kicked out?
Yeah. So, well, I was making some really, really bad choices in high school, and ended up doing something pretty egregious. I won't go into it right now, but my mom grounded me for 6 months. And she wouldn't let me go to the junior prom. I think, thankfully, being a mom now, I totally support her. But at that point in time, I was very angry. And she basically said, it's my house, my rules. If you don't want to live by them, then you can leave. And honestly, that was a lot for her to do, because she was not emotionally strong at all. And basically she was really leaning on the encouragement and wisdom from people in our church who were encouraging her with me. And when she said that, basically I chose to move out. So, found myself in some really difficult, trying situations. But that is how I also found the Army. My mom called the Army recruiter, and I was a junior in high school when all this happened and stuff, but she called the Army recruiter, and he ended up talking me into joining the Army out of high school.
Very cool. So where'd you do your basic training?
I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Oh, nice. Lovely. Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Lovely Fort Jackson. Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's cool. So you're getting kicked out of the house, you join the military, and then somehow you end up at West Point, one of the most prestigious universities out there. Kind of how did that happen?
Yeah, right. I like to tell people, no matter what, there's always a way to make it happen. Actually, when I enlisted and I was getting ready to head off to basic, my uncle, who was a Marine Corps veteran from Vietnam, he told me, he said, if you can be an officer, find a way to do that. And honestly, I had like no clue what I was headed into. I never had any desire to be in the military. Back then, this was before 9/11, the recruiter promises you a college education and traveling the world, adventure and fun kind of deal, so it was an easy sell at that point. I didn't know about West Point at all. So when I went to basic, and then I went to AIT in Fort Gordon, Georgia, and I met a friend, one of my classmates in my satellite communications training class. He was applying to West Point, and he was smart enough to get in. He just got deferred a year, I think, for medical stuff or whatever. But so he was reapplying, going through that process. And I was like, what is that? He told me about it. I was like, oh, that's cool. I want to do that too. So in the Army, you can go through what's called the command referral process. And most of the time you get sent to the prep school if you get a command referral. So you got to pass physical fitness assessments and academic, assessments and whatnot. But so I got a command referral and I got into the prep school, West Point Prep. And then if you graduate from there, then you get a nomination, an automatic appointment to West Point from the prep school. So that's how I got in. I call it the back door, but hey.
You're still in the house, even no matter what door you come in through, right?
I was still in the house. That's right.
So tell people what your major was, by the way.
Oh yeah. Well, you pick your major, what's called your yearling or yuck year, your otherwise, what is that? Sophomore, I guess. But and I had told my dad that I wanted to major in history. And he told me that I did not go to an engineering school to get a non-engineering degree. So I picked a different degree and I picked physics with a nuclear engineering track. So I don't know why, but I guess I was just like, fine, I'll do that.
I'll go take the roughest one they got then. I'll show you. So, I'm kind of seeing a pattern with your like hard-willed, hard-charging personality, whether it's good or bad. You go extremes, right?
I think that's what it takes to honestly be successful in life. Granted, it can take you the absolute wrong way in life, yeah. But definitely hard-headed to a degree can be both a virtue and a fault for sure, in certain situations. So the school of hard knocks and trials and tribulations sometimes can humble you and start to steer you in a good direction. And that's definitely been my life. So anyways, so I learned to be thankful for the hard times that temper me and direct me, guide me, lead me.
That'll do it. That sounds rough right there. I changed my whole major in college because of chemistry. So I'm the opposite of you, I guess. I went through the book. It was back when they had books, and I was like, man, what doesn't it? Cause I failed chemistry so bad, I had to change my whole major. So I had to get out of there, and I wasn't even at West Point. So you get through West Point. So somehow you get to prep school. You're obviously smart enough to make it happen. You're hard-willed and a hard worker, and you make it out of there. And then where do you go from there?
So I went to flight school. I went to Fort Rucker, Alabama. I was there for 2 years, really, because just the amount of time it takes to go through officer basic course, and then all the different flight school back then. I'm not sure how they're doing it now, but just the different stages that you have to go through, and then I was blessed enough to get one of 2 Apache slots for my class, and I became an Apache pilot.
Yeah. So if people don't know, that's pretty awesome right there. That I think I saw a stat that, female Apache pilots, maybe 3% of them are females. So if you talk about the elite of the elite, that's pretty impressive right there.
Well, there was one other female Apache pilot in my battalion, and she and I were in flight school together. And then right before we deployed, we got a female chief in our battalion too. So I don't know the stats. I know I had people like, they let women fly those, I'm like, yeah, one of the guys who was working with me, he would like brag on me, like it was so rare. And I'm like the way he made it sound is like I was the first female Apache pilot. And I'm just like, you can't say that. Like I'm totally not. I was nobody, honestly. Like I'm nothing special. But yeah, no, there's some women out there flying Apaches, flying fighter jets, a bunch of them, and doing phenomenal jobs. Yeah, so there we go.
That's awesome. I mean, you don't have to be able to bench 500 pounds to fly an airplane or aircraft, right?
No. You have, the biggest gun in the fight, so you're good.
Yeah, that's it. That's really awesome. So you're not nobody either. That's pretty awesome. So you kind of, is this kind of where you get your identity wrapped up and I'm an Apache pilot, something I've always wanted to do. I've accomplished this, and what happens after that? Yeah,
it takes a certain type of person, I think, a certain personality to be a pilot, a fighter pilot. And like I tell my friends, I like my surgeons and I like my pilots cocky. you gotta have, you have to have some confidence, when you're doing things like that. I kind of joke about it, but I mean it, but I was definitely wrapped up, became pretty big headed. I think there's a joke out there that says, how do you know an Apache pilot's in the room? And they'll tell you, kind of deal. So it's one of those things, kind of, anyways. And I've known a lot of amazing guys and girls and pilots, putting it all on the line, real heroes. It just takes a certain personality. And for me, I got, if I'm honest with myself, pretty wrapped up in that identity of West Point grad, officer, Apache pilot, that kind of stuff. And, God just saw fit to humble me and get me pointed in a different path.
Yeah. So describe what happened, why you went on that different path. So you look like you're going to become a career officer. There's something you want to do for the rest of your life. And then what happens there?
Yeah. So right before we deployed to Iraq, I started to feel some very troubling medical health symptoms, and just long story short, things would hurt. It would hurt to wear clothes. Doing post-flight or pre-flight on the helicopter, it felt like I was crawling on broken glass. It was my eyeballs would hurt, my head, things, just the left side of my body was numb, just really weird things, but like all pilots normally do. and I was like, it'll be all right. Yeah, I'm just, and pilots, we don't go to sick call, like we're like, we don't want anything to affect our flight status. So we don't go tell anybody when anything's wrong, so I deployed, and when we got to Kuwait and then into Iraq, I just started spiraling kind of out of control, and flying around, I felt it was so painful. I finally realized I had to tell somebody what was going on. And so, I started to black out randomly for no reason, and they don't like pilots to do that. So I was grounded, and eventually sent back stateside, and went through the medical discharge process. So from being all about myself, being a pilot and fully, hard charging, officer, all that kind of stuff, to wondering what was wrong with me and being scared for my life, to having to figure out what my future was, and, how do you put Apache pilot on a resume kind of deal. What did the civilian world have for me, all in like a span of about 9 months. And it was a whirlwind, and it was really scary. And I was alone for a lot of that. And I went through, I guess a lot of people can probably identify with this, whether they want to or not, but went through a pretty significant period of depression while that entire identity was stripped from me. And I was left wondering, what are you doing, God? Where are you taking me? You feel guilty because you couldn't do the mission. You feel like maybe your fellow pilots or your fellow, your unit doesn't want you. You just feel kind of ostracized because, you're not there as part of the team anymore. So it's a lot of stuff when you're going through that transition period. And I talk about that because I've had lots of service members tell me how they identify with that story, and how, they too went through that situation where, for whatever reason, they felt like they couldn't, like they didn't measure up, and they feel a lot of guilt because of that. So anyways, but thankfully, I believe God had a plan. He wanted me to be a warrior, and he gave me that story. He just wanted me to fight a different battle.
Yeah. I mean, that had to be hard, because you're not only losing your identity at one time, you're also losing team. It's a big team thing. If everyone's ever played sports or been in the military, they know how important that is, being part of that team. And when they're both taken away at the same time, that had to be just a completely flip your life upside down. So, but everything happens for a reason. So we wouldn't be sitting here today if that didn't happen. So tell us what you're doing nowadays.
Well, this started a long time ago, about 11 years ago. What is this year? I'm like, no, almost 12 years ago now. It's so I basically, when I got out of the military, I got a call from my physics professor saying they were he got a call from SAIC looking for a junior officer getting out of the military with a degree in physics and nuclear engineering. And he's like, I only know one. So that's how I ended up with a job at SAIC. I moved to Huntsville. I got married and then I moved from SAIC to a government position. I was working at the software engineering directorate then, and had a baby who was 10 months old. And I'm like happy, I'm loving life. I'm on solid ground, I'm like, just, really happy. And then my mom ended up passing away back then in 2020. I think it was 2010. So maybe it is 11 years now. One thing, I struggle with memory sometimes. But anyway, so when she passed away, I went through a really kind of hard period, and for me, I'm a Christian. What we're doing is not faith-based, but it is faith-friendly. But I believe, I went through a period of time of really struggling to have faith and believing what I believe in the Lord. And I asked God to help me believe. And he walked me through my story, basically brought up my story and everything that I'd been through and who he had been to me in that story. And at the end of about a 3-month period, I said, you know what, God, I believe in you. And it's because I've experienced you. I've experienced you in my story, in the hard times and in the good times. And at that point in time, I felt really called to do something to reach out and connect to people who are struggling, who are going through difficult times, who are feeling like life is meaningless and hopeless, who are feeling alone or isolated, and let them know that there is hope, that there is healing, and that there is purpose for whatever story they're living or that they're part of, and that in community we're stronger together. And it just came because, like, to the day my mom died, she struggled with things like, she died when she was 50, 52, 53 years old,
Wow.
Really, really young. And she spent the last 7 years of her life basically in bed, in and out of bed, just in a prison of her own fear and situation. But she struggled with things like addiction, all prescription pills, pain, obesity, depression, just a lot of struggles, and then I would think back to the time, my soldiers and the people that I had been surrounded with, the hard questions they had, the hard stories that they had. So many people come from hard stories, and it's so inspiring to see where people get to and realize how much they've overcome, and yet they feel so much shame for those stories. And I'm just like, wait, those stories are our superpowers. They give us our purpose in life. They give us our empathy for others. If we could share more authentically and vulnerably, man, we would build trust, we'd build relationships, and I've seen the power of it now, but basically, and then I also saw all of that, the same truths, in the corporate world, in the civilian world, people had stories, So anyways, I felt like the way to do this, and I felt God telling me that we would help millions, and that it would be through the power of stories, and that stories would connect people in relationships, and relationships would move people to positive action, community care, connection, cause, that kind of stuff. I had no idea what business was. I had no idea what technology was. I had a BlackBerry and I was a government employee. So, I just started out, started a blog, realized that there's 600 million blogs with the new one created every half second, and nobody cared what I had to say. So that wasn't going to reach millions. So I went to my church, and I decided to start a magazine, a print magazine, of course, because that's a brilliant business idea. And I reached out to people in my church and asked them to share their stories of hope and help and purpose. But again, no proselytizing, just vulnerable, authentic stories. And I got a whole bunch of people to volunteer. And basically we raised $7,000 in a Kickstarter competition and started something called Shattered Magazine. Printed our first issue back in 2012, I think May of 2012. And we got picked up by Barnes & Noble and Books A Million, and turned down by Family Christian and Lifeway, ironically. But really just the stories that we would tell were very raw and vulnerable. And sometimes there weren't pretty bows, but it all had hope and help and purpose in the stories. So we got, did that for about 3 years, got a lot of supporters along the way, had a lot of great feedback from people who believe in God and people who didn't, saying I related to every story. It's good to know I'm not alone. It's good to know, resources out there. And anyways, sorry, this is so long, but started to realize, the battle. So that, and I'd hear all these like stories from leaders, from organizations, from people. Everybody's out there. There's a whole lot of people out there doing good, wanting to make a positive impact. They have all these missions, all these visions, and there's so much we have in common. Stories cross every demographic. I'm just learning all this stuff. Like, no matter where you come from financially, or your background, or what you look like, the color of your skin, or your country of origin, or whatever that is, male, female, stories crossed every boundary, every barrier. And I just started to see more and more, though, I'm looking at the bigger problem. I'm like, okay, this print magazine is not going to do it. What's the bigger problem? And I started to realize the bigger problem is that our people are drowning in noise. They're absolutely drowning in noise, in to-do lists, in what ifs, in I should be's, or I can't be's, or I should do, or I can't do, in you're not enough, or, like the messages that are just being bombarded at people. And underneath it all, is technology. And while technology is amoral, right? I'm a fan of technology when used for good things. The way that I saw things going with social networks, with gaming platforms, whatever it is, and I started to realize, I'm like, man, people are getting a false sense of connection. They're not really connected. The good things are getting buried, because when you create platforms and you make them open and you allow people to publish whatever they want, and human nature and algorithms dictate what rises to the top, you are going to see the worst of humanity show up, because that's unfortunately what we gravitate to. And so, and you see the good things, the things that connect people to hope and healing and purpose and relationships and meaning in life and things like that are firmly in the middle of the emotional spectrum, right? That's a solid, happy, content life right there. And the things that go viral on social networks are on the opposite ends of the emotional spectrum. And so the things that were so good and so awesome would go nowhere. Okay. So basically, we realized about 4 years ago, we set out to build our own platform, and we wanted it to be a place that would take the best parts of social media, but pair them up with wisdom, with purpose, with the good stuff in life. And so it's been a long time coming. Lots of hard knocks along the way, lots of lessons learned, lots of pivots. But we're so excited at the REV platform and the +1 movement that is powered by REV. And so we basically say, REV is the meaning network. So as opposed to social networks where people go to check out or troll, the meaning network is where people come to check in and get connected to each other and to resources for hope and healing and to opportunities for purpose and impact.
That's exactly what they're doing. So I'm a member in there. I've been checking out. Just, man, nothing triggers you. You know, you go on social media now and something triggers you. I don't care who you are. There's something out there, because that's how the algorithms work, right? You get triggered and you react to it, and then it just repeats itself, right? That's not what this is all about. So the Rev's going there. So tell people more about the +1 movement, what that means.
Yeah. So, our hope is that people come in and, like, if you think about the social networks maybe being a bit venomous, right? Like, I mean, there's some good things in there, but more often than not, you come away feeling bad, right? We're hoping that Rev will be like the anti-venom. So, we're not saying get rid of your socials, but maybe put us in the rotation, And one of the ways that we one of the things we needed to do is to figure out how to make sure the platform stays focused and on purpose, on mission, on vision, on track kind of deal. And so, rather than force people, kind of deal, we really wanted to set the tone and build the foundation for the platform in a very positive and inspiring way. And so we decided to launch what's called the +1 movement. And the concept came to me from a good friend of mine, Jeff Healy, who's a Navy guy. But he basically he helped encapsulate what it is we were wanting to do. And what he told me is like, Rachel, as I see it, there's 3 types of people in the world. And he said, now what he kind of equated it to binary versus ternary world. And he said, in a binary world, there's zeros and ones, and people who litter would be zeros, and people who don't would be ones in a binary world, equating the human condition to it. He said, but in a ternary world, you have -1s, zeros, and +1s. And he said, people who litter would be -1s. The people who don't would be zeros, but the people who pick it up would be +1s. And I was like, it took a while for this to kind of sink in and get into our business concept. But I'm like, well, +1s, that's exactly what we need to be building. We need to be building a platform full of the +1s in the world, realizing that, yeah, we all have our -1s and zero moments. Totally get it. But can we be +1s more often than not? And can us +1s recruit the zeros, kind of the people standing on the sidelines, and get them to be more +1s, and eventually, I believe that we'll be able to really negate the -1s, build a platform that's highlighting and amplifying all the good things going on in the world, encouraging people to do and share more good things. All of a sudden, hopefully, our goal is to have 60 million users in 10 years. Wouldn't it be awesome if we had 60 million +1s out there capturing and sharing the stories of all the good things going on? And, you're not going to come to Rev because you want to be famous. You're not going to come to Rev because you want to go viral or you want to make a whole lot of money. You're going to come to Rev because you want to make an impact. You want to make an impact, a positive impact with those you love, those you lead, and those you serve in your communities. So that's just a different motive to be a part of what we're doing.
I love it. I mean, that's why I started this podcast, is just trying to get some positivity out there. I started it in the middle of the pandemic when it seemed like everything out on the news was the negative side of things. And there are so many awesome stories right there, like what you're talking about, what you share on the REV app, that, that people don't get there because it does get pushed down underneath all the other junk that's out there. So how do people sign up for it?
Well, you can download the app on the app stores. You can go to search for REV Network on the app stores. And you can also join the +1 movement by going to +1movement.net, all spelled out.
Cool. Yeah, you got to get on there, check it out. I mean, it makes you feel good when you're in there. There's none of the bad stuff. All pluses in there. So you've done it right.
It'll get going. The idea is that the more and more people that join and contribute, the more value there is, the more content there is, the more we're spreading the stories. So we encourage you to come in and participate in the challenges and share your stories about, people you see doing positive stuff, share your challenge ideas with us. Like it's going to be a lot of fun the more we get going.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So we're going to do some more about people getting to know you behind the app. So we got your background a little bit, but I'm going to get some more kind of rapid fire type questions. So what's one thing that you've done? You've done a lot of stuff out there. What's one thing you've done that makes you the most proud?
Well, I don't know. I'm the most proud. Honestly, I'm proud of how I let my kids kind of be creative, I guess. And I would say giving the kids the freedom to build and do things, without the authoritarian oversight has been something that I've been proud of, although lots of struggles.
I bet just knowing your personality that I've gotten to know in the past few minutes, I bet that's killing you. How to stop, let them do it.
Yeah. So I guess that's something, I would have said having the children or giving birth or something like that, but that's an obvious kind of thing.
Oh, you've done a lot of cool stuff. So that's a pretty good one right there. So that's probably another rough question for you to answer though, but what compliment do people give you the most?
So I don't know if this is a compliment, but when people see me at, like, let's say we're meeting like this or whatever, they are usually very astonished at how tall I am. So it's usually the "wow, you're tall" kind of comment. But I'm 5'11". Okay. But that's usually the comment I get, and they're not expecting me to be tall.
Yeah. Well, there you go. It's hard to tell sitting down, but yeah. Oh, cool. All right. What is your favorite book?
Oh, goodness. Well, right now, I guess I have a couple favorite books for business. Things like I like Modern Monopolies, Like Wars, and from the Nail It to Scale It book. Those are, if you're looking at some books that have inspired me business wise. Other than that, my favorite book growing up was Anne of Green Gables, the entire series. And then my like easy read would be anything written by Kali. I can't remember her name now though, so I can't remember. But she wrote the Love Comes Softly series. So there we go.
Sounds like you're a big reader. So I am too. I gotta check out those business books. Those sound like
yeah, I haven't read for fun in years, like probably since before having kids. So it's
are you a read person, or do you Audible, or a combination, or what's your favorite?
I despise Audibles. I've tried. It's a great concept, but for me, when I get in the car, I want to, like, I put on worship music and I think.
Yeah.
I just think. It's my alone time, So for me, I'm a read person. I like to skim. I like to get to the good parts. I don't want to listen. I don't even watch videos, and I don't listen to podcasts. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. This for other people. It's in for you. Yeah, that's all right.
I'm so sorry. I have the best of intentions.
That's all right. Hey, we can't all be perfect. Okay.
But I know I have my fault.
Well, this kind of feeds into the next one. You may have already answered some of these. What is one of your weird quirks?
Oh yeah. What, you think not listening to podcasts is a weird quirk? I go to bed at like 8:30 at night.
That's a goal of mine every night.
I'm like I'm an early to bed, early to rise. I like to get up. I like my alone time. And I drink coffee all day. So
we might be from the same family tree right there. Yeah, I get up at 4 o'clock every morning. Right when I wake up, I'm like, man, I can't wait for bedtime. Right when
like, when can we get to that?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to go to bed every night. So I like that. So, all right, so if you could teach any subject in school, what would it be?
Okay, so here's a little known fact. I actually substitute taught school because when I came back from Iraq and was going through the medical discharge process, and I was really alone and I had nothing to do. The rear D commander didn't want me to come in because he did not want them to send him to Iraq and make me the rear D commander. Oh. So it was like, stay away, and so I needed something to do. And so I did substitute teaching and I loved it. I love teaching. But I would be a math teacher and I would coach basketball. So.
Oh, nice. Did you play back in the day? Did you play basketball?
I did. And then when I was at West Point, I couldn't play collegiately, not that good, but I did coach the 7th and 8th grade girls team up there for 3 years. So that was awesome. A lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's cool. My son's a big bat. He loves basketball. That's his thing. So I love watching him play. So last one. So what's the best thing that's happened to you this month? We
bought a house.
Nice. Congratulations.
I'm in an apartment right now, which, I'm grateful for. But we sold our house and had nowhere to go. And we finally found a house. And So I'm hopeful everything works out good and we'll be in it before Christmas.
That's cool. It's a heck of a process to get a house right now, I'm sure. So congratulations.
It's a bit crazy here.
All right, so we're gonna wrap things up right here. I'm gonna hit you with a dad joke, a specific math dad joke for you. So I'm pretty excited about that. So why was 4 scared to ask out 5?
4 was scared to ask out 5?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
He was actually 2 squared to ask out 5.
That's horrible.
See, I thought I'd hit you with a nerd dad joke, man. That's a strong ending right there. It's the best when people like groan. That's my favorite reaction. So thank you for that.
No, I laugh at stupid jokes. But yeah, I'll tell that one to my kids.
There you go. They'll appreciate it. My son rolls his eyes. He gets all the dad jokes and he hates them, but he's still going to get them. So that's part of my job.
Hey, I heard a joke this morning. Say why couldn't the bicycle stand on its own?
I don't know.
Because it was too tired.
See, that's what I'm talking about. I think we are related somehow.
Probably.
You got to appreciate dad jokes for that. So yeah, everyone go check out that app. I'm going to link all that in show notes so they can just click on it and go directly to the app and get signed up. Super easy process. You got to go check it out. Hey, like I said, you don't have to get rid of your social stuff. You don't have to do that. It's just your anti-venom right here. So get the venom, but also the anti-venom.
There you go. Thank you.
Hey, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for what you're doing in the world out there, lifting up positivity and spreading the word. I appreciate that.
Likewise.
All right, cool. And I'll talk to you later.
Thanks.